Welcome to the official podcast of the Journal of Science Policy and Governance. In this podcast, students and early career researchers share more about their publication in the journal. Join us weekly to hear from the next generation of STEM leaders as we elevate their voices in science, technology, and innovation policy. Hello, welcome to SciPol SoundBites, a podcast of the Journal of Science Policy and Governance. I'm Adriana Bankston, JSPG's Chief Outreach Officer, and your host for this podcast. Let's dive in. JSPG recently published a special topics issue on the impacts of emerging technologies on inequality and sustainability in collaboration with the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth. Today, we're joined by two authors from said issue, Farah Awan and Soheib Nunhuck. Farah Awan specializes in delivering access to health technologies, and she's also an eye care practitioner. Farah has a keen interest in global digital health and specializes in health policy, innovation, and the design and delivery of emerging health-directed technology in these areas. Soheib Nunhuck is a member of the Digital Advisory Unit at the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, where his primary focus is on researching and educating IMF staff on digital topics important to the IMF's member countries. Using a framework based on digital building blocks, he manages the practical knowledge that assists policymakers in understanding the impact of transformative technologies and their role in fostering economic benefits while reducing risks. Farah and Soheib both hold a master's in public administration and development, technology, and innovation policy from University College London. And they're the authors of a new technology assessment published in JSPG entitled Governing Blocks, Building Interagency Consensus to Coordinate Humanitarian Aid. Farah and Soheib, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. So let's start with Farah. Can you give us the simple 1-minute overview of your publication?
So our technology assessment basically focuses on understanding governance of blockchain technology using building blocks, which is a program initiated by the World Food Programme. It's a cash-based transfer system which was created by the World Food Programme to provide food aid for Syrian refugees in camps in Jordan. And our aim was to scale up the building blocks program and encourage more of the operating partners of the World Food Programme, the humanitarian agencies, to join the programme. And to do so, we looked at the risk and data management components and the governance of blockchain.
Great. Soheib, did you want to add anything?
Yes, so like the operating partners at the time, it was consisting of some UN agencies. So we had UNHCR, UNICEF, UN Women, to which that there was like some kind of partnership with WFP at the time, and then some other NGOs, including Oxfam and Mercy Corps, to coordinate with and join the program. Yes. Thank you.
Great. That sounds like a really exciting project, and we're really happy to have this published in JSPG. So I wanted to delve a little more into your motivation for doing this work. Maybe Soheib, start with you.
Sure. So the motivation for this project is that I really wanted to have like a closer look on the reality of disruptive technologies that are applied on the ground, because it really there was a significant difference from understanding blockchain as a concept and then blockchain applied for a specific use case, and how blockchain actually has been capable of responding to the challenges on the ground that was observed from WFP. They needed an accounting system, and they needed a new way of transferring money directly to the refugees. So they needed also to use like the ecosystem that was provided by UNHCR. So that's what I really wanted to focus on, and to build our expertise as well.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Yeah. How about you, Farah?
Adding to that, it's using technology to ensure, meeting the Sustainable Development Goals for zero hunger is met. So, using technology to ensure that people get fed, can have access to food in a safe manner through which they can maintain their dignity and have autonomy over their purchases. So just looking at how, a technology that's previously been associated, let's say, with a financial association, to be then applied to a humanitarian context. I found that very fascinating.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's always nice to hear the background of the work that you published. So I wanted to delve a little more deeply into speaking specifically to our audience. So many of our members are students and early career researchers and young professionals. So can you give us an idea of what it takes to do this kind of work and how you went about that? Who would like to respond first?
You want to go
Would you
ahead?
like to? Oh, okay. Well, most importantly, you need to be patient. And as well as being patient and very, very well organized, to be proactive as well, because it takes teamwork to make such projects happen with regards to research and implementing it and formatting reports. And it's a case of applying our strengths where they were needed and encouraging, you know, the development of our skills between each other as well. And yeah, you need good negotiation skills, good communication skills, and yeah, keep seeing the bigger picture. Over to you, Soheib. What else would you like to add to that?
Yeah, well, actually, you just said the bigger picture, but at the same time, because we needed to work specifically on certain, you know, research questions, and so we needed to have like the rigor, but at the same time, we have like to be like, you know, very nitpicky about like the type of data and information that we needed to do, and then at the same time, whilst doing that, we needed to keep having this bigger picture. So that balance was probably some of like the key criteria to do. And then at the same time, like these are always try to keep like an optimistic point of view, because we understand that, you know, different team members have their respective strengths and weaknesses, but rather than, you know, creating like a gap or a dependency on all, like on some members rather than others, we wanted to make our strengths and weaknesses complementary of each other, so that it would be like the whole team that would have like an equal responsibility and equal contribution towards the project. And so I believe that's how we managed to deliver like the research to the standards that we had to do back at UCL. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. You both brought up really good points, which I think will be helpful for any students who are working on projects and teamwork, as you mentioned. That's important. So thank you. Okay, so let's go a little. I'm curious to hear more about, for you specifically, what was the most exciting and the most challenging part of your work? Maybe Soheib, go ahead first.
So I think my moment in which I found, you know, very exciting is that when at the time that we were doing the research, UN Women published a paper that talks specifically about their experience with the World Food Program on building blocks, but they're with their respective point of view. And so that added like a lot of richness into the research, because at the time we only had like the WFP's narrative about what they think about building blocks. And the other sources, well, they were only reporting information on building blocks, but with the sources originating from the WFP. So it was only like being the narrative, whereas as we had like the other side of the story with UN Women, that added like a lot more content. And so based from that paper, we had like enough material to build our use case study, which was central to our paper. So I was very excited when I had that. Over to you, Farah. What did you think most exciting?
I remember that we were really happy about, you know, scrapping
Yeah,
things.
yeah, we were.
Oh my God, this can be our use case. This can be our case study. Like we were saying before, Adrian, there were various challenges and different, you know, parts of working together and discovering new things about yourself. And for me, I quite enjoyed creating workshops. I'd never created a workshop before. Well, I'd worked in clinical workshops, but I hadn't done a research workshop before. So we created an ideation workshop, and we had, you know, academics and experts, and we made use of scholars and people attending a conference at UCL at the time. And so we hosted them, came up with ideas, which allowed us to evaluate different strategies and different ways of addressing our problem that we would not have had if we'd relied only on our own expertise. And what I found really exciting was just transforming all the data we had into, you know, something cohesive and visualizations. And yeah, that was really good fun.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
That
Yes.
was exciting. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
No, because I was trying to think like what else was exciting. Yeah, from that workshop as well. And what was interestingly enough is that we had respective experts. So like some were actually, like a professor like on technology that was really explaining in a nutshell just what blockchain was about, and then like the pros and cons. And then even before we deep dived specifically onto building blocks, whereas we had other people that were a bit more knowledgeable on humanitarian affairs and how WFP and that specific project was very interesting, precisely because of that reliance on blockchain. And so we had different points of views, and then sometimes like with arguments that they have made that were pretty interesting to hear because they were very critical, and at the same time that allowed us to actually question, couldn't WFP have done building blocks like using other technologies or having some other reliances on infrastructure. But that was actually made us question again like the motivations of WFP rather than just like sticking to the narrative and then just like keep on going forward.
And can I just add to that, Adriana, for all those who are listening, it's so, especially you were saying the students, it's so important to be proactive, to get out there. We had lots of rejections. There's lots of people who didn't want to be interviewed, or people who weren't available, or people who couldn't, attend. And, you just have to be really determined, be proactive in a respective manner, and just go for it and just have that end goal in sight.
Yeah, that's good advice. This is great to hear. I can hear your excitement when you talk about this. I think the other side to consider is, as you said, there are broader implications to your work as you were describing the different stages. So can you talk a little bit about what that looks like in terms of broader implications and also as related to underrepresented groups? Farah?
So we came across many different challenges, and one of the key issues that we had was it took time for some of the formalities to be completed, such as ethics approval. And what that did is then that put us on a really short time frame. We had about a month to put together interviews and carry out the interviews, to put the data together and put the report together. And that comes into, the whole being organized part. We've done our research really, really well, done our questionnaires, did our surveys, but we had to move really fast, and just making sure that we also kept to the narrative of the problem, and we kept the problem in context to make sure, the end goal was reached effectively. And there's a few more bits I'm sure Soheib would like to add to that as well.
Yes. So I think so you're right. The ethics approval, like the organization and moving fast. But I think what was also another challenge was not only it took us some time and several efforts to frame the problem correctly it was understanding the motivations of WFP, understanding our academic perspective, to frame that problem correctly, but at the same time try to adjust it several times. It took us a lot of efforts and lots of different narratives and positions. But then when we finally had that, when you're finally capable of framing the problem correctly, then it flows properly, and then the rest sort of falls into place. But to get to that stage, the first step for a problem is to recognize that there is one. But it's about, formulating it properly to realize, that's a problem that we need to solve.
Yeah, and allocating your strengths appropriately as well to make sure, everything gets done in that time as well. Absolutely, yeah.
And from that, if I may add, and also that kind of response to the questions that we were asked about the broader implications of the work, is that, well, there were two. One in which I really like about is that blockchain is being researched a bit by more international organizations such as the World Economic Forum, the IMF, the World Bank, but specifically on blockchain governance, which is it does not apply only for building blocks, but it is a topic that technologists and policymakers tend to have a lot of interest. But then with their respective point of views.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, and also it's because it's such a broad issue. It's so important to have the coordination, having organisations working together, having different agencies, having that picture in mind, the end goal in mind, working together, and also when we speak about the broader implications, it's about really highlighting inequalities and also looking at other contexts. So yes, we have the technology, but things like digital equality, energy, meeting the sustainable development goals as well, sort of how all these things interplay, which is why you need really good coordination and consensus moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really important, especially in the context of the issue as well, and just technology in general. I think I wanted to address this question of inequalities as well. So thank you for that answer. So given this work, I'm curious how you, both of you, plan to apply this to your professional life, what you've learned from this process. How do you plan to apply that moving forward? Maybe Soheib first?
Thank you. So I am applying a lot of the outcomes of that project currently at my job at the IMF within the digital advisory unit. It really is that we try to we strive for an unbiased approach of the technology and really understanding its applications on the ground. So for example, when we collaborate with other departments for different purposes, for example, let's say for public finance management, and then they understand, they have like a certain knowledge of technology, but then they do not understand how does that actually relate for their specific use case and their field. We have to give them like a one-on-one approach as to how this technology works from A to Z, and then from there, what are like the other key players and stakeholders that they have to listen to really understand whether if this is going to go forward or not. So, and this actually by nature had like the same approach of how we've done with this research project, and I try to keep that pretty much on an everyday basis. The other outcome that I use is being critical about technologies. You want to listen to different points of views. You want to document yourself so that you can truly showcase your expertise to others, rather than just like rely on just like what is being said about the technology, so that you can truly build like your own thoughts about it. What about you?
Thank you. What I've learned is, just the application of, having a process and going through that process, and then it can be applied to other problems as well. As long as you apply it, you're versatile with its application. For example, when we go to technology, you can harness the technology and can be versatile in its application. And my interest is digital health and reducing inequalities in digital health, particularly promoting access for women and children to health technologies, and so they can have healthier lives, independent lives, and then that feeds into other arenas such as better education, better quality of life. So I think it's a case of having a process, applying that process, which is what we did, for instance, managing the project effectively, making sure it gets implemented effectively, also being aware of the problems and how you can deal and manage with those problems using an appropriate skill set as well. And evaluating what you've learned. So that process that we applied in building blocks, and during the whole process of the research and its application, you can apply it, just elsewhere. It's just, you need to be, I think, versatile and keep a broad overview, whilst, as Soheib said, keep in mind your main purpose. And you can use that then in many arenas. As for me, it's reducing inequality in access to health, particularly for women and children, and having standardization and access to information that can be the interoperability, for instance, in, let's say, electronic medical records. Having that And just so the data can be gathered safely and be applied effectively and respectfully as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I really like that you brought that up as well, more of the broader perspective. And it sounds like you both learned a lot from this process. So that's great. And thank you for educating us on this topic today. I learned a lot from both of you. Can you tell us where people can find you online, on Twitter, LinkedIn, or what's the best platform?
For me, it's LinkedIn. It's Farah Awan, and my details will be on this podcast. According to Adriana, Adriana's fantastic on the board, so I'm sure it will be there. So yes, on LinkedIn is the best way to contact me. And yeah, please don't hesitate to get in contact. Don't hesitate to message, even if you're feeling shy. It's absolutely fine. Please do.
Yeah. Same for me. I'm on LinkedIn. It's my first and last name, Soheib Nunhuck. Because truth is, I'm not. I mean, I understand the relevance of Twitter, but I'm not too much of a big fan. There's already too many social media out there, and LinkedIn is already good enough for me to be reached out, to have proper conversations, and then taken from there we can have some calls, and then I can answer whatever questions you may have about the research, about the MPA that we did at UCL. So yes, I'm more than reachable and happy to answer any questions going forward. Thank you.
Great,
thank you so much, Adriana.
Yeah, we'll share the links to your LinkedIn in the description. So, but we just like to ask this question so people know where to go.
Of course.
So that's it for today. Thank you, Farah and Soheib. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to our listeners for being here today. You can find this episode and others like it on JSPG's YouTube channel and on SoundCloud. And that's it for this week's of SciPol SoundBites, the podcast of the Journal of Science Policy and Governance. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to our podcast on YouTube and SoundCloud. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at SciPol Journal.